Welcome to Super Movie Brothers. Let's start the show.
This is a podcast on the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.
Did you eat all this acid?
That's right. Music!
You better pray to God there's some Thorsies in that bag. Otherwise you're in bad fucking trouble.
Music, man. Put that table on. That goes to that fantastic note. When a rabbit bites its own head up, I want you to throw that fucking radio into the tub with me.
Fuck, you've gone completely sideways now. You want me to, throw this thing into the tub when White Rabbit peeks? Is that it? I'll do it. Shit. What are friends for? You ready? What's the score here? What's next? And then savagely penetrated every orifice of her little body with his throbbing, uncircumcised member. I'm a relatively respectable citizen, multiple felon perhaps, but certainly not dangerous. You can turn your back on a person, but never turn your back on a drug. Was I just roaming around in a drug frenzy of some kind?
Welcome to Super Movie Brothers, movie cocktail podcast for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, starring Johnny Depp and Benicio del Toro. The reason I don't list anybody else as in this film is because it's basically a series of guest stars and cameos, and some of them are to hilarious effect. Debbie Reynolds and Tobey Maguire, and it is directed by Terry Gilliam and based on a novel or a book, a compilation of stories by Hunter S. Thompson. And there's actually a lot of screenplayers attached to this, and we'll get into why there's so many screenplayers attached to this later on in the behind the scenes part. But as always, I am joined by the rest of the Super Movie Brother hosts.
Super Movie Brother Jay.
Fan Film Boy Rob.
Mark.
Just Mark.
Just Mark.
So this is the one that won the poll, man. So
Yeah, Jay finally won.
Jay finally
Jay takes a win.
won.
Well, let's
I'm
be fair.
in the club.
I don't. In this type of category, this one had to have won.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the ultimate one of this category.
Right.
Yeah, I think it is I think it is the most appropriate one out of the ones that were all selected. Like we talked about, we didn't do Requiem for a Dream because all of us love ourselves enough that we didn't want to put ourselves
Too
through
real,
that.
yeah.
It's just too real. It's too painful. It's gut wrenching. You might be able to watch that once a decade if you ever want to go back to it and return to it.
I agree with that.
So I was very happy that none of us picked that. That was very happy. But we had Rob picked Trainspotting.
Yep.
Mark had picked Half Baked, which I was like my secret dark horse. I was kind of hoping for that one the most. And I picked Walk the Line, which if we want to run down it, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas got 38% of the votes. Trainspotting 26%, Half Baked 24%, and me with Walk the Line at dead last with 12%. And that is out of 270 votes on Twitter. So thanks everyone for voting.
Yep, thank you.
That's how we selected these films. And at the end, we will announce what the next poll will be for the next category, which Rob is selecting tonight. So for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, for everyone's first impressions, let's start with Jay, since this is your film that you selected, man.
Yeah, so the first time I saw this movie, I can't quite remember. It might have been later on in the 90s, possibly 99, 2000. And it was just
Well, Jay, it came out in
a shit
1998.
show of,
So it came out in the late 90s.
And it was a shit show of insanity that I didn't know what was going on. And I was a kid at the time, and I revisited it probably later on around 2003 when I really fully embraced it, when I was kind of like at a Johnny Depp high and just kind of like revisiting all of his old films, where I really just sort of fell in love with the madness, or it was able to pick up. The number one thing is you picked up on a lot of the lyrics, not lyrics really, but the dialogue that the spiel in this movie. Like,
I would say rhetoric more so than
mean,
like dialogue.
yeah.
Just the way they speak more so than like the actual words
Right.
coming out of their mouth. You know, like
A lot of them are quotes from the book too.
yeah, and the
Right.
vocabulary. And a lot of it is not just quotes from that book, from a lot of other Hunter S.
His writings,
Thompson,
yeah.
novels. Well, not. I keep saying novels, but he doesn't necessarily write.
He's a reporter,
novels.
Dave.
He's a reporter. He's a journalist, a gonzo journalist.
Gonzo journalist.
So this is actually a film that you saw it pretty early on in your movie loving career, which, as everyone
did.
knows, started very late in Jay's life.
Indeed. But this is one of those films that just really stuck with me, and I thought it was absolutely absurd and hilarious and kind of fascinating in so many different kind of levels. And I never seen anything quite like it since. So what about you guys? Rob?
I like the last one, The Thing. I have to admit that I had not seen this one before. I watched it this morning. I taped it off of the Stars channel and watched it this morning while everybody was away, and it was just me. And it blew. I don't know what the fuck I watched.
It was a goddamn reptile suit.
I'm like,
That's a good
I was-
response. That's-
I-
We can't
I was,
stop here. It's
watching it,
backcountry.
and I was like, I was waiting for something to happen for some sort of a plot, and then all I kept seeing was
You should
Oh,
have
you expected your average
I expected
Hollywood
a movie.
3
Yeah,
art
I expected
story?
I expected a beginning,
Yeah,
a middle,
shit
and
just
an
happens in
end.
this
Something to
movie.
happen.
Were you aware of who Hunter S. Thompson was before this movie?
I kind of knew what the film was. I'd heard a little bit about Hunter S. Thompson, about like that he liked drugs, that he was a writer, but that's about all I
we
knew.
love drugs.
Yeah,
didn't
that's
just-
all I knew. I went into this totally blind, and shame on
Loved him
me
some
because it blew my mind because I just couldn't understand it all. There was just so many things going on that I was like, did that happen? What? Now we're onto this. What's that?
Rob, don't look now. There's 2 women fucking a polar bear behind you.
I do remember that part. Yes, with the monkey sitting right next to him, right? The orangutan was
Yeah,
sitting right.
no, that's later
That's
on.
later on. Okay, in the same bar, right?
Let's get down to brass tacks. How much for the ape?
Oh man, just like it's just crazy. I mean, it's more like that room. All I could think about at the end was that room, and it reminded me of The Hangover.
Oh, gee, I've
But-
never been in
Right,
a
the hotel
convertible.
It just starts from the very beginning where
It's fucked.
Oh, right off
Yeah,
the
it's
gate. Yeah.
Absolutely
just like-
fucked.
It never stops.
it's like okay, where am I going? 2 hours.
You're gonna
Okay.
thoroughly enjoy it more and more if you watched it more often, more times over. If it's your kind of thing, it depends.
I'll watch it again. I just don't know if I'll watch it again.
Have some drinks in you
soon.
first.
Yeah, maybe I might need to get a
You're a little
bit
too
more
sober while
yeah.
watching that one.
Let's get over to Mark.
Yeah, so I had seen this years ago. I had read the book as well, which I really love the book a lot, even more than the movie, I would say. But the movie, I watched it again, and it still holds up. It's crazy, as Rob said. It's kind of the perfect drug fueled movie. You feel like you're on drugs when you're watching it, right? I mean, that's kind of
Sure.
that's
Definitely.
it definitely puts you in the mindset of Hunter S. Thompson, and it's batshit crazy movie. Lots of funny lines, great scenes.
Backcountry.
Backcountry. Yes.
And Terry Gilliam was probably the absolute
and
perfect choice.
Terry
for
Gilliam
this.
is the way he directed.
I don't
it.
know. When we get into behind the scenes stuff later, there was a director who was attached to it that I would really look forward to that film. But there's
But this is a very Terry Gilliam movie. I
it
would
is
say.
very Terry
Yeah.
Gilliam movie,
Yeah.
and Terry Gilliam hasn't always gotten to do his type of films. You know what I
That's
mean?
kind of
Like-
his thing. Yeah.
yeah, is when you let Terry Gilliam be Terry Gilliam, you get something that is strange. You wouldn't say it's a masterpiece or that it's good. It's just it's very him,
It's very him. Yes.
and it's always like mixed reviews, like very
It could
divide.
go either way. Yeah.
It's like Terrence Malick type things.
Ex-
You know? It's
exactly,
Like you're either
'cause-
going to love it or hate it.
because you get Terry Gilliam's, Brothers Grimm, which was a big studio
Yeah.
film with studios involved, and you can see his elements there. It's just not.
But the combination of him and this material for this particular movie, I thought it really worked.
I thought it was a perfect marriage. Yeah.
But
So-
we can get into that later.
So for me, this was the first time I saw it last night at between, like I said, like
For shame.
11 p.m. and 1 a.m. It's a film that it was always on my radar. It's just one of those things, like I talked about before when this was a category selected. I'm not really big into drug films. It's not anything that I'm like. I'm not drawn to that type of culture and stuff like that. While I have been drawn to beat poetry and stuff like that, like Jack Kerouac and stuff like that, which is an influence for Hunter S. Thompson. But it just was never anything that I really wanted to see per se. People have always talked about it around me, and I now that I finally watched it, I see what people see in it, and I rather enjoyed it a lot. And obviously, I liked it a lot. I'm able to quote a lot of the lines from it. After watching it,
I thought you'd enjoy this movie just for
I
the
did.
quotes alone.
But like Rob, there were moments where I was like, I'm getting a little bored. Like there's definitely like down moments.
It's a little long. It's 2 hours. It's almost 2 hours, and you feel every minute of it.
Well, the thing is,
certain by the end of it.
The thing is, because every scene is so crazy, I think that's why it kind of feels drawn out a little bit, because it's like, all right, what crazy shit's going to happen next?
It's just like a drug. You're riding that high for so long, and then you start crashing.
But then it comes back up.
But there's so many crazy things going on, but you get almost numb to the craziness that's going on.
You get fatigued, is what it is. Like,
I can definitely see that, yeah.
That part near the end, he's like leaning out the car and throwing up all over the side of the car, and I'm like, okay, well, I just see him throw up about 100 times before that in the
Ether makes you like a
throws up a lot.
Ether makes you like a mid 18th century Irish drunk. You know that your body's doing
they mentioned
it, but you can't
every
stop your body
single
from
type
doing
of drug in that film, too.
He probably did every single type of drug.
Oh my god, the scene when they stop and he goes into the trunk and he goes through the list of all the drugs and he says like it's a hell of a thing being that he says like it's not so much about they're going to do all those drugs, is that he's a drug collector.
Oh yeah,
like he was treating it like any kid would who goes onto the playground and opens up their Darth Vader head to show all their original Kenner Star Wars
it's like
toys.
the right drug for the right situation.
It's his trophies almost.
And then he has alcohol there to bring him down. And like I love the part where, where he's like, "Did you take all this acid? You better hope there's Thorazine in that bag."
He's got something to counteract every drug.
Yeah, he's got something to counteract it.
He's a professional. Yeah.
Yeah, a professional drug taker.
Well, a la Hunter S. Thompson himself.
Right, exactly.
And speaking of professionals, Jay has developed a cocktail for this movie, as is what we do on Movie Cocktail.
Nice
so,
segue.
Jay, let's go through the cocktail itself, the ingredients, and why these ingredients are apt.
Yeah, so I am calling this Fear and Loathing in Hunter. I essentially wanted to make a cocktail.
Is this a gay man's fantasy?
Inside.
Yeah.
Well, in theory of like this is all cocktails and drinks and beverages that he consumed throughout the whole day. So my cocktail is 2 parts Wild Turkey whiskey, 1 part of tequila, 1 part of Heineken, and 4 parts of the margarita mix with ice. We blended it up and the blender, and it just came out with a nice frothy finish.
Not just a blender, Jay. It's a magic bullet.
Magic bullet. Sorry, magic. It was magic,
which my wife has in her nightstand as well.
That was nice. I get it. Yeah. And you can coat your glass with salt or cocaine. That's probably what Hunter would do.
Yeah. And then when you're done, you can lick the cocaine off the off the rim.
So essentially, his daily schedule was getting up at 3 p.m. and starting off right away with just uppers and downers. He
lived the life.
He drank margaritas and Heinekens mostly in the beginning before he ate and stuff like that. And then constant Wild Turkey on ice or Shivas on ice. And, cocaine throughout the whole day, weed to bring him back down.
Yeah,
it was just a constant cycle of different kind of drinks and drugs.
He has that famous interview where he was interviewed about the Nixon administration. He's being interviewed about Nixon, and just before the camera just catches him as the camera turns on, he's and you see him he tweaks.
The thing is
he tweaks all the way back in his chair. His legs go up. He's like,
the thing is, I honestly feel like he didn't give a shit. People
he
do.
doesn't.
He does not.
He had
that's
good
what
friends
makes him so appealing.
It was the news because they couldn't show that on an FAA feed.
Right,
on a for the FCC, they couldn't show that, but he got just enough of it.
He did not give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, and oddly enough, he actually had a lot of political friends out there. And,
oddly enough, he ran for political office.
He did.
Politics.
He ran for sheriff of his town.
Woody Creek.
In Woody Creek,
There's a book about
Colorado.
that, yeah.
Yep. and he was going to be the Gonzo sheriff, and he only lost, surprisingly, by less than 500 votes. So he almost became the sheriff. And there was people, not just like Hunter S. Thompson fans, not just like counterculture people that wanted him elected. There was actual people in the town who liked the ideas he had.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to be about punishing drug dealers. It was going to be about punishing people who dealt bad drugs. Like if you can deal in good drugs. Like there's, as long as you have high quality stuff that isn't tainted or poisoned, people generally won't die from your drug, or if they're a responsible drug user. Like he was very, and he wanted to teach people about responsible recreational drug use, which is like crazy that you would think about that. But in reality, when you think about it, you won't like. It wasn't about fighting a war on drugs. It was about teaching people to live,
Embrace the drugs.
not embrace it, but how to, if you're going to do drugs, here's how to do it safely. It's the same thing they do with safe sex
people are gonna
in
do it
grade
anyway.
school
Yeah.
He
when they
believed
tell
in
you
freedom,
Right.
and he just wanted people to be safe while doing it. You know?
But it's same thing with like safe sex in grade school or in high school when they're like, we can't stop you from having sex. That's going to happen. That's a losing battle. The church lost it years ago. Church and state are separate now. Here's condoms. Here's how you use it. Here's how we stop teen pregnancy by educating people. It was very much the same thing when you talk about drugs, where it's like, that's too much. This is your first time. Maybe try just a taste. And learn to control yourself a little bit.
Exactly.
Don't go buying apes in the middle of the night.
Yeah, so I knew this cocktail was going to be a little off-putting probably on paper, but I thought it was potentially going to have a good, decent little balance. And I wanted the whiskey be a little bit more heavier because that's what he drank throughout the day more often. And you know, the beer was just going to have, I thought, a minimal taste of that and just have a little bit of a frothy finish on the top.
Well, I mean, I enjoy it now in the current form that we have it here. When you gave it to me as just the mix with no ice, with no crushed ice, not done up like a margarita, it
was still an experimental phase.
It was foul, absolutely foul. Like that's no pun intended on the wild turkey.
It wasn't.
You full him tonight.
Oh my god!
Yeah, wow.
Puns, he's got them
On fire.
But it was terrible. Like just absolutely awful. But then
This went down really easy, though.
when we put it in the blender and you add the
we're all
salt to the
finished.
glass,
Yeah, we did finish it.
it does wind up tasting like not an average margarita. It's like a margarita with a bit of balls, with a little bit of a kick.
Yeah.
It's got that bourbon kick to it.
Yeah.
It was nice.
And that's exactly what I wanted.
I enjoyed it.
Good job.
So-
No, it was great. I finished mine already.
Yeah,
so.
I think we all finished them, yeah.
Great.
Very good. So if you want to make one night in Thompson,
One night in Thompson.
Jay, what's the name of it
You
again?
can rent the movie at Blockbuster.
I mean, there could have been so many names, but I went with Fear and Loathing and Hunter.
Fear and Loathing and Hunter.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I okay.
Think about it. All right.
Can you add like in his head, like Fear and Loathing in Hunter's head,
Yeah,
like at
inside,
the end?
yeah.
It just
I like it.
Just keep it
I like
ambiguous.
that. You're sticking to your guns. I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
no respect for the dead. We're just
Keep it ambiguous.
making it sound like we're all sodomizing
Well,
the man.
I mean, he did shoot himself in the head, so I don't want to put head in next to Hunter, right? I mean, come on.
Save that for
Spoilers.
Spoiler.
Save that for the behind the scenes stuff. So coming up next, we are going to get into this film deep inside. Film. Ba-dum-dum.
We had 2 bags of grass, 75 pellets of mescaline, 5 sheets of high-powered blotter acid, a salt shaker half full of cocaine, a whole galaxy of multicolored uppers, downers, screamers, laughers, also a quarter tequila, quarter rum, case of beer, pint of raw ether, 2 dozen amyls. Not that we needed all that for the trip, but once you get locked into a serious drug collection, the tendency is to push it as far as you can.
So, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is the story of Hunter S. Thompson's alter ego, Raoul Duke,
Yes.
and his lawyer traveling to Las Vegas to cover a 500-mile desert race, desert dirt bike race. And really what it is it's kind of in his failure in that and the drug-fueled adventure that ensues from there. But really, it's just meant to be kind of like almost like a week in the life of Hunter S. Thompson, or at least this alter ego of him, Raoul Duke.
Yeah, I mean, he meets up with his lawyer buddy in L.A.
Right.
at the Beverly Hills Hotel, I believe.
Beverly Hills Hotel.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, boom, they get this advance for this article that he needs to write. And they hop in the convertible, the Red Shark, and go out on an adventure. And on the way, they
And the person who brings him the phone is not the first little person in this film.
No.
Did you guys catch the little
All right,
person
you know what?
cameo?
Let's get something out clear here. I am deathly afraid of little people.
Are you really?
Yep. I
I don't even know what to
hate
call
them.
that. Is that racist?
It's called,
Like, what is
nah,
that?
I don't
it's
know
called
what
lollipop gildophobia.
It's
Nah, but I mean, I joke.
it's
but
bigotry of sorts, no matter what it is.
I can tell you stories, but I don't. I
wanna
hate
hear these
little people.
stories.
I really they make me shiver. I go white.
Wow.
Like I just can't.
Rob,
I've walked into
you
traffic.
That's
you live in a
amazing.
state that
I've
literally
walked
has a
into-
town called Midgetville in it.
I've walked into
That's a real
traffic
place in New Jersey. Look
to
it up. We're in New
avoid
Jersey.
midgets. I have like
Don't say that word.
I have.
That's their word for their people.
Little people.
Dwarf?
I-
But you're tall, so everyone's little person
like,
needs.
it's been since I was like 18 years old. As far as I can remember back, it makes me shake. My wife is my whole family knows it. I am like deathly afraid. So this movie, that was one of the things that I noticed straight off the bat was how many little people were in this movie.
So you can't watch Willow, I guess.
I can't. It just like like I love
We gotta
Jackass,
vote for that next
but every time Wee Man came on, it would like
Oh no!
it would like do something. I just like
Oh my god.
Wow.
You know what I just realized
Shiver
with how tall Rob is and how tall Jay is? Me and you are like the
We are the little people.
We're the Samwise and the Frodo of this adventure.
I know it sounds weird, but one of the things that freaks me out the most is the normal size body and the normal size head with the little arms. Where do they get their clothes? Where? I just can't. I'm
I'm gonna have to edit all this
I'm
out because I
shaking.
feel
You
like
and Austin Powers have this in common.
I feel like we just lost like every little
whole
person
little
who
people
listens to this.
audience, yeah.
So anyway, the little person that cameos
Carry
later on in
Showing his-
the circus in the circus casino is Vern Troyer.
Yeah. He was selling tickets, right?
Yeah, it was one of his first roles ever. I thought that was
Can we
pretty
talk about
interesting.
Tobey Maguire
Yeah,
and how
Oh
he
my.
looks in this
it's the
movie?
beginning of the film. Let's start with that. He actually looks really bad in a pickup shot that they had to do.
What's going on with that?
Yeah, the
but-
pickup shop was really bad.
Yeah. They also had to try to digitally to get rid of the line that was for the bald cap because they didn't want to pay the extra $5,000 to put in his contract so that he had to keep the look up until reshoots were done.
Was this a low budget feature?
This was a low.
Considered low budget?
No, this was an over budget feature, is what it turned out
Well,
to
it's
be.
Terry Gilliam for you.
Yeah, it went over budget, over schedule, over a lot of things. But yeah, he looked awful. But one thing he did look great in was that Ralph Steadman T-shirt. He was wearing the T-shirt he was wearing is Ralph Steadman. Ralph Steadman is the artist who did all of the art for the Hunter S. Thompson articles and everything. He did the art for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas as well, and even the lettering on the movie cover, on the posters and stuff like that, is all Ralph Steadman lettering and everything like that, which I thought was a nice nod to Ralph Steadman, who originally wanted to they wanted to have like chapters, and Ralph Steadman's art would have been featured in like chapter 1.
That would've
It's
been
like
cool.
the like on the road and stuff like that. But that scene with Tobey Maguire is that opening scene really is
Really
the
just
best
throws
part.
you in there.
Oh
yeah.
my god, yeah. Where he's screaming about the bats, and he's going through all of the he's going through all the effects of the drugs that they're feeling, when they're when it's going to kick in and all this stuff.
ether
And Benicio, well, he's staying away from the ether for now.
For now.
But Benicio del Toro, like he looks like he's having a heart attack, and he's just like
The whole movie.
yeah. When I first started watching it, I didn't recognize him at the beginning. Like he is completely different than
He
you ever
committed
seen him.
himself pretty
he
good.
put on
yeah.
40 pounds for this
Yeah.
role.
And you could tell too. It was not like it was.
He ate 5 donuts every morning to like start
That's
putting
dedication
on the weight.
right there.
Yeah. Oh man.
And obviously, I mean, they both did. Johnny put it in his work, and Benicio did as well, and they're good
they were
friends
both
with Hunter.
really, really good.
Yeah,
And they had that interesting
had a great chemistry, too,
to
yeah.
really just
Yeah. The way they
dash
play off each other.
play off each other.
We were talking about it earlier, how they're both kind of two sides of the same thing, sort of. You know.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Yep. And it worked.
One of the things I noticed
curious how
throughout
much
the-
is improv.
One of the things I noticed throughout the film is that they take turns being the one who's more fucked up, like
More crazy,
like
yeah.
right, like there's
The other one
there's-
has to talk about it.
Right, there's times when Benicio del Toro is tripping on acid in a fucking bathtub,
in the bathtub.
and Raul has to talk him out of his
Electrocuting himself. Right?
well, electrocute himself. He's like, "So wait a minute, you want to drop this in? Justice Jefferson's starship hits its crescendo.
Airplane. Yeah.
But then he does it for him, but fake.
He throws the grapefruit at his head.
That's great.
does the countdown, and he's like ready to die, and he closes his eyes, and he throws it
And
at
that's
his
a
head,
scene-
and then he just runs
That's
out.
a scene right from the book too. Very memorable. Yeah.
Yeah, and but there's also the point before that where Raul, Johnny Depp's character, was watching Vietnam footage, and he starts going a little crazy. He's like, "Do you see that war machine?
The shadows on the roof, yeah.
Right.
The shadows
And
on the
he's
ceiling,
like hiding behind the bar and stuff like that. But Benicio del Toro is kind of straight at that point. He's more even keeled, and he's get your shit together.
It probably depends on how many drugs they're on.
It's
at
just
the time.
it's the way he looks too. It's just like he looks scary when he's not necessarily trying to look scary.
Yeah.
Well, Benicio is scary looking when he's trying to look pretty.
You see him in those commercials too, like the Heineken commercial. He looks scary in that
I
too.
know,
Hey,
It's
Antonio
just-
Banderas.
Yeah, it's like
Not
his natural
Antonio
look, but it's
Banderas.
just like I would never fuck with him.
Never.
Ever. He would like mess me up, but he's just really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, there's times where he's like perfectly straight, like where you see him back in his office. When
you see him
gets a call.
sober, like in the beginning, when he's got the suit on, and he's fine.
Was he were they ever sober in this movie? That's my question.
He had moments.
I think when they start out, they're even. I don't know. I think
They
were
have
pretty
down
good right
moments, but I don't think at any point
Yeah,
are
I don't
they
know.
ever
don't know.
100%
I know.
sober.
Well, Hunter's definitely not, or
Yeah.
Raul Duke. I'm sorry, but yeah, it was a lot of fun, and they
mean,
had
and it
different
got-
kind of scenes where they could play officer. That was Benicio's scene, really, when he was tripping like that.
Yeah.
And then the other one was when Raul Duke is tripping later on in the other hotel room, and he's blanketed with an American flag, but
They both had their
There was a
moments.
lot of
later on in
American
the
flags in
movie.
the movie
Yeah.
too. I did notice
Imagery.
that, like the
Yeah.
imagery, imagery in general about the whole film.
I think that also goes back to Hunter S. Thompson's writing, which is
His
he wanted
roots, yeah.
he wanted to show this side of America. Like
Right.
this is the side of America he really wanted to show.
And he says in the film that they're in search of the American dream.
Yeah. That speech he
And
gives
whatever
at the
that may
end,
be,
yeah.
they're just going to try and find out what that might be. And especially during that age and that era, the country was in
Vietnam,
flux,
yeah, it was-
with the two the murders of JFK and Martin Luther King and all these kind of
Vietnam going on,
and
still.
Vietnam, and there was so many things going on.
Early 70s, right?
Yep.
71. So it was like that was like heading towards the stalemate
Yeah.
that it was. So
So you had these, he's deeply patriotic and also deeply crazy.
there's a lot of imagery in the background too. Like the first thing I noticed is when they get in that beat up car after they leave the Beverly Hills Hotel. There's like that angel holding up a
A fire sword.
fire sword. Or,
Yeah.
fire sword. That's
Yeah.
it. I'm like, did
Lots
I
of
see that? And there was
little details.
there was imagery of like devils and stuff like in behind
Right.
Yeah.
later on, like when he goes to the dirt track. You see in the background there's
Right.
another. I want to say it's another angel.
Did Mark, you're the only one that read the book, correct?
Yeah.
Did
Long time
he
ago,
actually bring up a lot of those kind of details as well, like what Rob's explaining?
That kind of stuff I don't remember. I remember like the main like moments and scenes, but I don't remember
that is more Terry Gilliam.
That's more just like, what crazy shit can we put on the edge of the frame?
Right.
Or visually,
What could we
yeah.
allude to? Visually here.
But the film definitely purposefully, like we were talking about, goes through these ups and downs where, like, you are lucid with them, but you're having fun when they're all crazy on drugs, and then it brings you down, and it has moments where you're just kind of scared for them. Like, you don't know at any point, like, is Raul going to get stabbed by his attorney? Like, is this going to happen? Is Benicio del Toro going to stab him?
Or is he going to stab somebody else?
Or is he actually going to throw the toaster in the tub?
Yeah, or is the cassette player, or is
cassette
Lucy going to actually turn them into the cops? Like, are they going to get arrested? Like, when are they going to get arrested?
Yeah.
When is the ball going to drop?
Yeah.
You keep wondering.
I think they do too. Like when he gets in the car to drive away.
Oh, he
from
keeps saying he's
the hotel.
amazed
Yeah.
at the hell they've raised.
And then he turns around and comes back and does it at another hotel. It's like
Yeah, he even mentions that in any other city other than Las Vegas, this shit probably wouldn't have flown.
Which I feel like is a running joke of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Raul, he's more of like he lives inside his head, right? Like when he's high and everything like that, he retreats inside himself and lives inside his own head, which is very much what Hunter S. Thompson did. You know, he wrote on drugs all
Well, he
the
didn't
time.
start writing until midnight, so he already
Right.
had 9 hours of drinking and drug
Right.
use until he started writing.
I was just
Just
getting started.
until 8 a.m. when he finally passed
Where
out.
on the opposite end, it was like Benicio del Toro's character. He was the animalistic side of he's your drunk friend that takes it too far. He's the guy that doesn't know when to stop and stuff like that. Where Raul could go introspectively into himself. The attorney's Benicio del Toro's character would allow his mind to come out externally, and he would
Right.
say what he's thinking. We even see Hunter S. Thompson beginning, like he sits there and he goes, fuck, did I say that shit out loud?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that all comes to a head
Right.
like at the very end in the diner scene.
Oh, yeah,
That's,
right.
That's where it all comes out. You actually see that. You see
I think that might be the
lawyer
only
with the
moment-
knife and
Right.
You're like, is he really going
Can
to
he
kill
trust
her?
his own
like
brain? Yeah.
I could see him going around that counter and killing her.
And
because-
I think Raul's character, Hunter S. Thompson sums it up best when he says, "There goes one of God's own prototypes, a high-powered mutant of some kind, never even considered for mass production, too weird to live, too rare to die." And I think like that's probably the best way anyone could have ever described that character, that real person that it was based off of, which was Acosta, who was his attorney in real life in the 1970s. And but I think that's a mutant. Like that's the way you feel about him when he's on drugs. But it's crazy because you do see moments when he's not high, when he's making a phone call to Raul, and he's like, "What the hell are you doing in Baker's?"
yeah, when he's in his office, right?
Right, yeah.
And that was weird. There was
This is a
weird
man who
imagery
went
in the background there too.
right. It's a man who went to law school. It's a man who 100% had to have sober moments in his life, but you barely see like the glimpses of those characters throughout that. Even Hunter S. Thompson is a doctor of journalism. Like he has a doctorate, so you have to know that he himself had moments of clarity. So I like those points in the films where like you kind of see that it's there, it's hiding underneath the
when
surface.
you see beyond the bender that they're on.
Exactly. And I think in the third act, well, if there is an act, if there are acts in this film, at the end when the hotel room's flooded, he's wearing waders, he has a reptile tail on, which is a callback to the fucking reptile zoo, in the first act, and he's kind of going back and he's remember everything by listening to the tape that he taped to himself, the tape recorder he taped to himself. He's thinking back to everything they did, and he kind of gets a little haunted at himself and their actions, especially when he thinks back to that diner scene. I think that really sank deep inside him and made him kind of feel
Inside Hunter S. Thompson.
yeah, it's but made him feel just made him feel not, I wouldn't say dirty or like he did anything wrong, but just kind of like
Just takes a moment.
a moment that maybe it went too far.
Yeah. He questions his own brain for sure.
Yeah. But I think that's the point of
Well, he said-
human
well,
of
in
being
that sort
human.
of-
Period. It's
In
questioning
that
yourself.
monologue he's kind of giving when they're leaving the diner, you kind of feel that way. Like he said something to the effect of she's felt the cold of the knife against her throat or something like that. And he's like, he could actually see the fear in her eyes. And he's
Right.
like, well, I wasn't planning on doing this to put fear in people's eyes. I was like, just trying to, take drugs, or whatever. But
he only ever wanted to
It was a sobering moment for him.
Yeah. which there are very few throughout the film. But I mean, ultimately, while those points only exist to show you that there is reality behind this drug-fueled curtain that you're watching. But you have more fun with the drug-fueled curtain. And so does Raul and Hunter S. Thompson. They have more fun in that state. Yeah. I mean, even Hunter, as he aged, like he wasn't the Hunter S. Thompson he was in the 1970s. By the time he got to the early 80s and everything, and he was writing for articles for Rolling Stone and stuff like that, any literary scholar will tell you that like he wasn't him anymore. He wasn't what he used to be. He was a guy paying his bills, and he was a guy playing a character. But what he was writing in the 70s, this Fear and Loathing in Las
It really
Vegas,
was him.
yeah, the book that he wrote about the Hells Angels and stuff like that. That was the Hunter S. Thompson that he would never recapture. And it's one of those. It's kind of like in a it's a glimpse of time that you're watching in this. You're
Right.
you're really watching who this
that
guy
era.
was. Right. Only in this time, in this era. If you did a biopic about Hunter S. Thompson,
It'd be a completely different movie.
be a completely different type of movie. I think telling his story only works by doing it this way. If you told a Hunter S. Thompson story, it would wind up being very much like a Walk the Line, which I put it. Like it would wind up being
Right.
like that, a very biographical type thing.
Well,
where
that's one thing you could say about this movie. It's very committed with the tone that they went for. It was like, we're going to go on this drug trip and we're not going to really let up. We'll have moments like we talked about where they think back on things, but that's about it.
yeah, and I think it shines. The film shines mostly for the drug trip.
Can we talk about like the amount of like cameos? Would you call them cameos? The amount of
Yeah, I mean,
cameos, or the
Like
amount
Cameron
of,
Diaz.
Is anybody
everybody-
else wondering what they did to get kicked out of Debbie Reynolds? I assume they pulled their dicks out and like jerked off.
Oh yeah,
I
Most
think
likely.
that's exactly what they did.
most likely.
It was so fast.
But I mean, you got like you said, Cameron Diaz in the
Right.
elevator. I mean, I saw Penn from Penn and Teller.
Oh, yeah.
He was early on, one of the like doing the sideshow sort of things.
Yeah.
I saw Flea,
Mark Harmon.
Right, Flea.
Mark Harmon,
And
Yeah.
Hunter S. Thompson himself.
And Hunter.
I
Very,
missed that
very
one.
quickly.
Oh
I'm
no,
sorry.
you definitely saw it. It's when he thinks back to 1965 and he's walking through and he goes, "Jesus Christ, is that me?"
He's like walking through and he stops and he turns around. Then like all of a sudden you see Hunter sitting there with a bunch of girls around him and they kind of like look at each other and he just keeps on going. It's like a blink and you'll miss kind of
Okay.
situation.
I guess I did.
So don't
think
feel
of
bad
this.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was Hunter S. Thompson sitting at the table.
But like, there was just so many. I mean, and there was little things that I was noticing. Just again with the imagery. There was one thing. There was in one of the side shows as I was walking through that casino. I think it was a shooting one. There was a guy in a KKK mask. Did you guys see that one?
There's a lot of little plays on imagery when they drive past a car crash on the highway.
Yep.
Written on there's two dead bodies that are covered in sheets. One of the sheets, the blood that is on it is in the shape of a happy face.
Oh, okay.
So there's tiny little things of imagery like that throughout. Like it is the joy in the violence, which is one of the things that Hunter believed in. I mean, he was a big gun advocate.
Big time.
He was big time, obviously into drugs and drinking and freedom, not just freedom of
He was a country boy. He's a Kentucky boy.
He was born. Yeah, he was
You know,
born. He was born in Kentucky. So but he believed in rights and in freedom and stuff like that. But he also believed in beauty within violence, which I think is one of the reasons that the backdrop of the Vietnam War is kind of important for this story and for this time period where if you don't embrace that level of violence or that level of political turmoil, like if you can't embrace it, then you need to hide from it, or and maybe drugs at the time was society's way of hiding from society's problems.
Right.
But he brought that to light in his writing.
Well said, Dave.
Very well said.
Deep shit.
I did watch a documentary after watching this. It wasn't Gonzo, which would be the one that you go to. That would be that's a fantastic documentary. I have seen that, which is probably where I picked up a lot of stuff about this film from, because I saw that before I saw this film. But I watched it's a TV series that's called 24 Hours. Or last 24 hours. And it takes the last 24 hours of the life of someone who was influential. So I watched the last 24 hours of Hunter S. Thompson's life. And it was extremely interesting. And they really get into the psychology of who Hunter S. Thompson was, which I thought was very, very interesting and stuff like that. And I think Terry Gilliam is the best person to make this interesting film because a room full of lizards.
Yeah.
That's the type of shit that you
Just
get.
everything. I mean,
Right.
not even just that. Room full of lizards, like all of it. You're like,
I think
like just the mention, like you said, Debbie Reynolds, like bringing her in, even just the fact of what was going on there. Yeah, why were they kicked out of that show? The fact that they had to get into it in the first place. I mean, even down to like, just so much.
How about the carousel scene? He's like, just walk off.
Yeah,
And he's just
trying
like,
to get
when does
him
it
off.
stop? I don't think it ever stops.
One of my favorite scenes
think it goes on
is
for
when
infinity.
when they take the ether finally and their legs are so wobbly that they can't even
Oh,
walk
yeah.
and they're just it was so hilarious.
And a monkey put me through the turnstile. I know I had to reach into my pocket and get $2, but I knew that my body couldn't perform that task.
Gary Busey.
Oh my god!
Oh my god! How do we forget that?
That line was completely ad-libbed.
Can I have a kiss?
Can I have a kiss?
That's the best.
He just wanted to kiss Johnny Depp, I guess.
Completely ad-libbed. And Terry Gilliam didn't actually like it, but it worked with test audiences, and it worked not even test audiences, with people who watched the dailies. It worked with them.
Yeah.
He had every intention of editing
It works
out.
because you don't know what's real in the
Because
movie.
he's a
So-
creepy
yeah.
cop anyway. You
Yeah,
know,
that's
he was
and
doing
Scary
weird
Busey.
stuff.
So.
Right. And that's one of the moments that I was like, is he really telling this cop all this
Right.
stuff? Where he's just like,
Right.
I know it was wrong. I broke the law and I did it anyway.
That's a great line.
Like, yeah. And it's like, is he really saying that? Because throughout the film,
Or is it in his head? Yeah.
right, he does continuously have problems where he's just like, did I say that out
Right.
loud? Like, he doesn't know what he's saying out loud. But it's definitely it's such a weird character piece on him and on Benicio del Toro's character, who's based.
But don't you find this movie is sort of like a must-watch piece of cinema?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, in
Oh, you won't
history,
see anything like this ever again.
Yeah,
That's the difference.
and not even just visually, but also like what he wrote. You know, like there's him and his history, and
It's true, and it is.
you know,
We'll get into it, I'm sure, in the next segment because we're getting ready to wrap this one up. But they've tried to do this film or a similar film to it back in 1980 with Where the Buffalo Roam with Bill Murray.
yes,
Quite a different film.
Very different film, and it's
Much more dry. Yeah. Well, it's Bill Murray's.
Well, it was also directed by a guy who never directed a film before and only directed one or two films
Yeah.
after. So it definitely didn't have
The energy.
It
Losing
did,
battle,
right.
yeah.
It didn't have, and it definitely didn't have Terry Gilliam behind it. Because I was thinking about this. Who else could direct this film besides Terry Gilliam? And there was a lot of people that were listed. And Martin Scorsese was attached to it at one
Quentin Tarantino
point.
would be-
Quentin Tarantino could have do it. I think Oliver Stone could possibly do it. But there was a lot of people that have been attached to this project over time, and they all dropped out because everyone said this is unfilmable.
Yeah.
You cannot tell a 3-story arc with this. You cannot do an act 1,
Yeah.
act 2,
It was-
act 3. It's just absolutely impossible. And Terry Gilliam went, yeah.
Exactly.
I know you
gonna do
can.
that.
Yeah.
So I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I don't. I
A little
want
similar to like Naked Lunch, where it was like an unfilmable, book or novel.
right.
That,
Was there any moments that anyone felt uncomfortable while watching it ever? Like, was there uncomfortable moments?
whole movie?
Because
I
I
don't
think I think that. But
Christina
I'm
Ricci's in the film as
yes,
well.
that
got a little
was
bit on the
un-
creepy side,
right?
yeah.
And I like
Only when he was not. I didn't. I guess because I'm still seeing her not. I didn't see her as young as they're saying that she was. I didn't get that when I looked at her.
in 1998
but
she was probably about
yeah.
18 or 19.
But when he was outside explaining what he was going to have done, sort of trying to put the lawyer off her being there, where he's talking about the cops running the train on her, all that sort of stuff. Like, I was like, okay, that, just like the lawyer's saying, that's a little bit off,
right,
Right.
right, but that's where his mind goes.
But also, I see what he was doing was to do that, to put the lawyer off,
Right.
to get rid of
Right.
him.
That was-
and when that didn't work,
It probably wasn't that he was ever really going to do
Right,
that.
right.
It was that he was trying to do that to put him
That's
off.
how I
to-
took it anyway.
Yeah.
no, he was never really going to do. But that's also a place that his mind goes. Like he had that thought, even though he would never act on that
I
thought.
think
He had that thought.
That shows that this movie just goes anywhere. Like it will go. It would have gone anywhere.
But also, when that doesn't work, he changes tactics, and he's just like, "This could look bad on you." She's eventually gonna come to, and she's gonna tell how a giant Samoan man with put his big uncircumcised penis in every orifice of her body. So he's very like this strange, almost like chameleon of a person throughout it, where he kind of has to like fit the scene, I guess. But at the same
Well,
time,
obviously with the Hell's Angels background as
but
far
at
as
the
a
same
writer.
time, he got his ass beat by the Hell's Angels for not giving them any money for the money he made from that book. By the way,
But that's another story.
that's a story for another time. But he also has a big he really doesn't give a fuck what anybody thinks.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's
That's
very,
kind of his whole character, right? There,
it's a very strange dynamic throughout the entire film. And I think if you didn't have this foil of his lawyer along with him to play off of each other,
It wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work.
No.
If you just told the story of one person in Las Vegas fucked up, it wouldn't work. It just wouldn't.
Oh yeah, it was the partnership of the two.
Yeah, definitely. And both of them brilliant acting jobs
Yeah.
throughout it. So, So next, we're going to be getting into the behind-the-scenes stuff of the film. We're going to get into its strange production history, what the actors had to go through for getting ready for it, and we're also going to. Rob is going to give his category for the next series of films that we're going to be doing. So stay tuned.
Let's give that boy a lift. What? No! Wait! We can't stop here. This is Bat Country.
Hot damn! I never rode in a convertible before.
Is that right? Well, I guess you're about ready then, aren't you?
We're your friends. We're not like the others, man. Really.
No more of that talk or I'll put the fucking leashes on you, understand? Get in.
All right, so now for all the behind-the-scenes stuff that was going into this film. So, like we mentioned before, someone else has played Hunter S. Thompson before. It was Bill Murray in 1980 when they did Where the Buffalo Roam, which is 17% on Rotten Tomatoes is what Where the Buffalo Roam gets. It's 6.5 on IMDb, where I think Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is like 7 out of 10 on IMDb. It's definitely not as good of a film. And also Peter Boyle is playing the crazy lawyer, which is really strange. Putting on the red.
Yeah, it's just as a film, it's just not as memorable. You know?
It really isn't. And I think it's because back then they really were trying to tell they really didn't let the craziness of the story really live. They were trying to tell an actual story within this crazy adventure and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, to go this crazy.
Wasn't as unhinged.
Then.
Yeah.
But when Johnny Depp was cast as Raoul Duke, now before that it was almost Robert De Niro. And no, I'm sorry, Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando. That when Scorsese had it back in the 80s, it was almost those two. So Jack Nicholson would have been the Hunter S. Thompson role.
That I could see actually.
And then Marlon Brando would have been the lawyer role.
I don't know about Brando, but yeah.
I don't know. I can't see it.
Jack Nicholson, I could see.
Jack, I don't know if you should take that.
I don't know. I can't see Jack going as
He's
crazy
played
as
crazy.
Johnny Depp.
He's
That's
played
the problem.
I mean, The Shining, you know.
Yeah, no, I get the
Different
crazy.
kind of crazy, but-
It's a different type of crazy.
A couple weeks ago, Jay just reviewed One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and
yeah.
he does
Talk about
crazy
I
well.
can't see anybody doing the type of we mentioned before, the walk when they take the big hits of ether off the American flag. You know,
Jack
the wobbling
Nicholson
legs.
certain-
I can't see any of that.
Jack
being done by
Nicholson
Jack
certainly would have Jack Nicholsoned up Hunter S.
Yeah.
Thompson.
Yes.
You know?
Well,
Yeah.
The thing about Johnny Depp is I was going to talk about this is
Well, you know what? It's Bat Country. We gotta get out of here.
He essentially method acted the hell out of this.
yeah, Johnny Depp
he immersed
became
himself.
And so did
this character, really.
And so did Bill Murray, which is funny. Like people think like even though that's the lesser of the film, that less work went into it. For Bill Murray and Hunter S. Thompson, who also was on set and was a consultant on that film, they were constantly trying to rewrite the script together. They were constantly trying to redo everything, just like Johnny Depp did for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Bill Murray lived with Hunter S. Thompson for a time,
like
borrowed
Johnny
some
Depp.
of his clothes and stuff like that. And even when Johnny Depp was cast, called him up and gave him advice. And he's just like, do yourself a favor. After you play Hunter, pick another role with a vastly different character, or else
Right.
years to come, you will find yourself playing him,
Right.
which was true
Well, that's-
because Bill Murray was still on SNL after he did it. It was 1980, so he was still on SNL. One of the reasons he actually started having personal problems with a lot of the cast of SNL was because he would slip into Hunter at times and do crazy stunts towards people and say fucked up shit and get fucked up, and like it was a big problem for him. So that advice came from someone who had experienced it in their own career.
It seems like Hunter S. Thompson is contagious in a way because when Johnny Depp became him, I don't know this. I don't know if everyone else feels this way, but I feel like ever since this film, Johnny Depp was different. Like I feel like he changed, like the actual person, and he's doing variations on this Hunter S. Thompson kind of persona.
I would say
in a
Jack
way.
Sparrow was the one that really changed
Right.
his
Well,
acting
that was
style.
I mean, also Keith Richards and everything.
I could see parts of Jack Sparrow in
this, yeah.
In this, I mean,
yeah.
But I mean, Johnny Depp, you can see it in the documentary. I believe it's Gonzo. Sorry, you can see it in that documentary. I believe it's Gonzo, where Johnny Depp, he narrates it, and he's actually hanging out with Hunter S. Thompson. They're shooting things, and Hunter S. Thompson's backyard, and
He's much more low key. And
yeah,
quiet.
but I mean, Johnny Depp was he became like one with the lifestyle, and I feel like it really affected him in a way.
If you want to see a good representation of how hard it is for Johnny Depp to actually get out of roles when he's done, go watch Robert Rodriguez's Once Upon a Time in Mexico, where he plays an FBI agent down in Mexico who's going after the El Mariachi. At one point, he's in a bar, and the whole time he's in the bar, this film was shot 3 weeks after he was done doing Pirates of the Caribbean. And if you know anything about Robert Rodriguez, he shoots rapidly. He shoots films within 3 weeks. So he's sitting there at the bar, and he starts like kind of like rocking back and forth like he's on a boat, which is something that Johnny Depp added to Jack Sparrow. So that always felt like he was always at sea. He always had sea legs. And then when he ends a conversation, he takes a shot and he goes, "Are we savvy?" And then gets up and walks away. And it's like, well, why would an American FBI agent say, "Are we savvy?" Like in that very, very Jack Sparrow-esque voice. So Johnny Depp really does get into roles, and I could see that Hunter S. Thompson became a part of him for the rest of his life. And to this day, the gorilla that sat out front of the circus that had that message written on it, that message of fun written on it, now is in Johnny Depp's yard.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, he made a big impact on him, I believe.
Is he? I don't know much about Johnny Depp in terms of his acting.
He was one of the eulogies for Hunter S. Thompson's funeral.
Right.
That's how the impact
paid
had.
$3 million to shoot him out of a cannon in Hunter's will over his house. Like
to anyone listening, you should really watch that documentary.
To be cremated,
if you're at all interested.
he was cremated and then shot
$3
out
million.
of a cannon.
That's how good friends he was with him.
But is he the type of actor that he stays in character even during breaks? You hear those. So
I don't think he's that far.
You can't
Maybe
talk to him
roles,
during the break because he is still Hunter during the break.
I don't know if he goes that far.
Like
I don't think he's like Jared Leto, or Daniel Day-Lewis. I don't think he's that far. But
I just think when he's in it like for the scene. Yeah,
he fully commits. But
I think you could say his personality changes, maybe offset. Like he's still off a little bit. He's still part of that character. Still part of him.
If you watch interviews with him in real life from that time, he's still talking kind of like Hunter S. Thompson. He's like has that kind of cadence, and I don't know. It's just something broke in his brain. I think
Hunter S. Thompson.
Maybe he just realized that's who he's always been, sort of thing. Before
so
then,
in the dark, in Hunter S. Thompson's kitchen, he cut Johnny Depp's hair. He shaved his head, and then he actually Bic razored the bald spot on the top of his head, and he did it in the dark with a miner's hat on with a spotlight on it. But the reason they did it that way was because Johnny Depp had long hair and couldn't bear to see the end result. So he did it in the dark with a miner's cap on.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
And not like your Coleman camping light. Like an actual helmet, miner's helmet with a giant headlamp on it.
That's amazing.
And in the documentary I watched about his last 24 hours, like people describe going into his house, and it's the craziest fucking thing. You'll see a Smith & Wesson sitting next to the golden gloves that Ali won, and like he has these strange memorabilia that he's picked up from just knowing people.
Yeah, I could see that because he he's very known for having very powerful friends in various kind of walks of life, as far as political figures, sport figures, actors, musicians, doesn't matter who it is, and they come to him. They go to Woody Creek all the way in Colorado. He doesn't really go to them. They abide by his rules.
That kind of personality.
That is also because he got stuck in himself,
and he's protected there. The town probably knows Hunter's ways.
To a point, he honestly, we know that in 2005, I believe it was, he ended his life.
Shotguns.
His favorite gun, a 40 caliber Smith & Wesson to his head. It was
so he killed himself.
He killed himself.
Okay.
The problem was he was aging. He was 67 years old, and he hadn't been the Hunter S. Thompson that he thought he was in his head for a long time.
He did not want to be old.
Yeah, he did not want to. He never saw himself living that long. He had broken his leg. He had a hip replacement. His back hurt. Like all this stuff was going on. His body was failing, and he couldn't be who he was. He was a guy who wrote about
or wanted to be.
Right. He was a guy that wrote about freedom and doing what you wanted to do, and here he was living with limitations, and he was never a person who wanted to live with limitations. So he took that ride as far as he was willing to take it, and then he took his own life. surrounded by his family and friends. Like he invited them to his house for the weekend. His son.
They were actually there when it happened.
They were there. They were not in the room. He did it in his
He was on the
study.
phone with
But he brought all of them there, and he even brought a friend who was a videographer there to tape their last moments together, because no one else knew it was his last moments there, and everyone who knew him, he always said that he was going to do this, but no one knew that it was coming that soon. Everyone thought that it would happen when he was much older and stuff. He seemed happy, but at times he would slip into a drunk, raving lunatic who even in the last day, he pointed a rifle at his wife and said, "It's not loaded. What are you getting so upset about? Oh, come on," and there was just moments where and he did spend, even in his later years, he was barely had sober moments. He was barely ever sober. Part of that was to deal with the pain, and part of that was the fact that that's just a lifestyle he lived, and he was never going to give
addiction,
up.
Yeah. I mean, he's just a full-on blown-out addict. I mean, for many, 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 many years.
But he left impressions and imprints on a lot of people throughout Hollywood. He
was larger than life. Right?
Absolutely. And even in his later years, when he was just going to colleges and speaking and stuff like that, he didn't go there and spoke as Hunter S. Thompson. He pretty much went to those colleges and spoke as Raoul Duke. He went there drunk. Like even one of them at Caltech, I believe it was, or at Southern California University. That's what it was, Southern California University. He went there and he only talked for 6 minutes, and then he slept on stage for the rest of the time because he was so drunk. He just passed out on stage, and he was paid $25,000 for that, for speaking there.
Wow.
And he got
sleeping there,
and he gets it up front.
See, that's part of his deal, because but at the same time they know what they're going to get. They don't know what they're going to get, but they know that that's part of his allure.
But I think Mark does have something where he was saying like Johnny Depp was absolutely changed by this role. I mean, we know that happens. I mean, Jim Carrey just did a documentary about how Andy
that was
Kaufman
fascinating. I
changed who he was. Period. And I think Johnny Depp may have a similar.
Didn't they say that
story
about Heath Ledger too? I mean, with his portrayal of the Joker, that
No, I
think it's a little different.
It's a little different.
With real people, and you know them personally from months on end. The Joker's an imaginary character. So.
Heath Ledger let his roles go when he was done with them. Like he would let them go. But he did live in them when he was there. But I mean, one of the things was, in the room that he died in, there was his notebook of his notes on the Joker and different aspects of things that he took to build that character. But in the end, it was a character. While he did live some days as that character, it didn't ultimately lead to his demise. I don't think. I think his, it was ultimately sleeping pills that led to his demise and an addiction.
I think in the case with Johnny Depp and Jim Carrey, I think a big part of it is, both of these people are huge celebrities, obviously, and just wanting to be someone else for a little bit, and someone like Hunter S. Thompson who's so free, and like Andy Kaufman who's, obviously like that as well.
They're very
there's something,
people.
Yeah, there's something about that draws them to that, I think.
Yeah.
And don't we all just want to be inside Hunter?
I know Jay does. But.
Well, I want to I want to quick read a very short personal favorite quote from Hunter. It says, "Sleep late, have fun, get wild, drink whiskey, and drive fast on empty streets with nothing in mind except falling in love and not getting arrested."
So
it's a fun little quote that I really enjoyed.
So Jay lives his life when he picks up 15-year-old girls. One of the things I really want to talk about is Ralph Steadman's art. We talked about it a little bit. It's on Tobey Maguire's shirt. Ralph Steadman did the artwork for most of Hunter S. Thompson's works. It was a friendship that he had developed over years, and it had such a lasting effect on people, Ralph Steadman's work, that Ralph Bakshi, the director of a lot of the Mighty Mouse cartoons, he also did Fritz the Cat, Sword of Ice and Fire. Lord
of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, yeah. The Hobbit also. Like he did a lot of.
Actually, I don't think he did The Hobbit.
He didn't do The Hobbit,
no.
all right. But he did a lot of animated films back in the 70s and 80s. It was his original idea to take Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and turn it into an animated film done to the styling of Ralph Steadman, with Ralph Steadman as art director over the film. The problem was he went to go get the film rights for it, and Hunter didn't have them. He had given them to a girlfriend. Given film rights to this to a girlfriend who was swayed by people who wanted to make live action versions of it. And Ralph Bakshi kept saying over and over, you can't do it. It just can't be done. But we can do it this way, and it may not be famous, but it'll live in infamy, which was like his line about it. And I think that's very true. It probably would have. It would have been like a Fritz the Cat, where like Fritz the Cat is. I could say Fritz the Cat. Rob, you've never seen Fritz the Cat.
No, I have never.
Jay's never seen Fritz the Cat, but me and Mark have seen Fritz the Cat, and me and Mark live in infamy. Like we live in this world of like seeing things that like other people haven't, like Colt. Like it would have been Colt.
Right.
But she didn't want to. She ended up actually, it wound up obviously getting sold, and then Terry Gilliam wound up making it. But there was screenwriters that were attached to it before that, and there was actually a lawsuit over the screenwriting for the film because so much of what was originally written for it wound up in the film. So while Terry Gilliam and Tony Grisani did a lot of rewrites for it, the screenplay was originally written by Alex Cox and Todd Davies, and a lot of their elements still wound up in Terry Gilliam's final film. So they actually took them to court, and what they wound up doing was just sharing the credits with Terry Gilliam and Tony Grisani and Hunter S. Thompson. But one of the funny things is all parties involved who wrote this film all felt wronged by that legal decision. They all felt like we shared credit. We shouldn't have shared credit because all of the famous scenes in the book they had written in their script. Well, of course it's going to look the same because it's a book. It's such a faithful adaptation of the book. Right. So of course it's going to be there. So really the only person who should really have writing credit is probably
Hunter S. Thompson.
And I would say Terry Gilliam and Hunter S.
Because he's the one that made the film. Yeah.
Right. Johnny Depp had a few rewrites on there and stuff like that as well. But one of the, we talked about how Martin Scorsese had the rights to it at one point. He wanted to do Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando. Would you guys have watched a version with Dan Aykroyd as the Hunter S. Thompson character and John Belushi?
Yes.
As right. So would have I.
Yes.
That was of the proposed versions.
I could probably see that, to tell you the truth, yeah.
Other than the Ralph Bakshi version, that version sounds like the best. Unfortunately, John Belushi died, and that fell through. So, but this was a project that people don't realize was in production since 1978.
Wow. I didn't know that.
And then they wound up making Where the Buffalo Roam.
20 years later.
All right. And then it had such a strange, and no one could figure out how to do it right. And to this day, I'd say it's probably one of Terry Gilliam's best films ever made. So, it's
I think more than anything, it was probably the power of, at the time, Johnny Depp to make this made.
Yeah.
To actually put it and find everybody and piece it all together. I guess he's probably not a producer in this film.
No, I don't think so.
It's a producer's job probably to do that. But even still, to have him attached, he was a big enough star at the time to actually really get it financed and make it.
And one of the really cool things is Hunter S. Thompson's legacy still lives on today. Obviously, Rum Diaries came out a couple of years ago. That's based on Hunter S. Thompson works as well.
Johnny Depp again.
Early works, like before Gonzo.
A novel, something a story he tried to tell, which turned out that just wasn't his style. But also, and that really wasn't a good movie either.
It was, very forgettable.
But even Ralph Steadman's artwork still lives on today, not just in the Fear and Loathing, but I mean, you know what? Jay knows that from doing our show, Super Movie Brothers, that we review beers on there. My favorite brewery is Flying Dog Brewery, which originally started in Colorado, and the first eatery and micro pub that they did, brew pub, was in Woody Creek in Colorado. So and the guys who started it were actually friends with Hunter S. Thompson, and he's the one that introduced them to Ralph Steadman, who to this day, even though they have left Colorado, Frederick, Maryland is their home now, and they are the largest brewery existing in Maryland right now. Ralph Steadman still does all the artwork for all the labels that they do, and
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. A couple weeks ago, me and Jay, I always fit Flying Dog into our show. I reviewed the family drama
definitely.
Imperial Pilsner, which is the artwork is still by Ralph Steadman. All the artwork is done by him, and it's very much, a lot of their beers are very much inspired by Hunter S. Thompson. They had the On the Road, I think it was a porter with him. Now that On the Road porter, which is no longer out, it's no longer available, but they do the Gonzo Imperial Porter,
I'm gonna drink that.
Yeah,
I never had it.
The Gonzo Imperial Porter. It's really good. It's usually done in limited release, but when it's done well. They also do a barrel aged limited porter, which is, you would be surprised, it's about $16 per 12-ounce bottle. But it's barrel, but when I tell you it's one of the best porters I've ever had, it's one of the best porters I've ever had. So a lot of legacy there, a lot of things to really dissect in this movie, a lot of things to really love in this movie. Final thoughts on the film? Anybody? Start with Rob. He's been quiet for a while.
I've been quiet because I did not know too much about. I learned a lot tonight. I did not know that much about Hunter S. Thompson and everything like that. So for me, I really enjoyed listening to what you guys had to say, because I think I'm going to go back and read the book now.
It's worth it.
Read a lot of his stuff.
Definitely.
Start with that Hell's Angels book.
There's a lot of material out there. Yeah.
I at first, when I first watched it, I just was like, again, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, what the fuck? I was like, from the moment you first see them in that car to the moment you see him driving away in that car, there's not a break in that movie where you're like, okay, so...
And you're coming to it with no frame of reference.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's going on? Yeah.
So I really enjoyed the film. I'm going to watch it again. I don't know when that will be, but I'll watch it again.
Watch it after reading the book.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's what I'm going to do. But I really enjoyed the film. I mean,
It has some drinks in you first.
Yeah, I'm not going to take up too much time with mine, how baby.
You, like me, you use Audible.
Yeah.
Get the...
Oh, that'd be...
I think I'm going to do that.
Get the Audible.
Actually, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of credits to waste, so I might do that now.
Yeah, absolutely. Jay, your final thoughts?
Yeah, this is definitely one of those beloved Johnny Depp movies for me, and Hunter has always been a fascinating creature out there that I've always kind of not really been inspired by, but really just admired in
No
some
offense,
degree.
Jay, you don't have the balls to be a Hunter S.
Oh God, no. God, no. But I admire people like that
Not
because I just don't have it in me to be that.
Yeah, not at
so
all.
and it is fascinating, and I really Mark was saying about the documentaries and the books and stuff, and you read and watched some documentaries as well. I know I have one myself, but I haven't watched all of it, and I find the documentaries and all the little nuances that are captured with him back then are just utterly fascinating, and as obscure and fake as it sounds and looks at times, it's all real. He's living it, and in all its glory. And that's what he wanted in life. And he fully embraced it, and he went out the way he wanted to go out. So, as selfish as some people might think it was, I think, everybody knew him as an individual, and that's how he wanted to go.
I'll never condone suicide, ever. But I could see where you would think that about him. He went out on his own terms.
I agree. Yeah. There's small exceptions,
right?
But
Mark,
man, how do I follow that? This movie it's a wild ride. It's not a perfect movie.
But
this like we were talking about before we recorded. There are moments where it kind of drags a little bit because it is up on this high for so long, and when you're on a roller coaster, you could only go up and down so many times. But having said that, I do think there's a lot to love about it. I think it's definitely worth a watch. I think Terry Gilliam did a fantastic job directing it. Just the angles, the extreme angles he uses.
I think stylistically, there's a lot to love here.
If you're a film buff, it's a great movie to watch, and the performances are solid. And if you're at all interested in Hunter S. Thompson, and if you don't know much about him, or you want to know more about stuff that we talked about, I would definitely recommend reading the book this is based on, and reading other of his works, and checking out the documentary with Johnny Depp in it. And he's a fascinating guy, fascinating character.
I think what I like about this show that we've done tonight most is that we've made this a little bit less about the movie because honestly, there's not a whole lot of substance. There's a ton of substance in the film.
You can talk for hours on this film.
Right. What really this film is, it's a love letter to the man who wrote the novel wrote the book that was based on. It's what it comes down to. Yeah. And we've really done a Hunter S. Thompson show rather than a Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas show, which is
much like the movie, because because the movie's about that feeling.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's about capturing that character
Right.
and capturing that essence. And while I don't think any one of us would ever be capable of capturing that, you could definitely see how it's such an enigmatic personality, and it's such a gravity well that it just drives people in. It sucks people in.
Right.
And it really does. And I guarantee you just watch this movie, you want to know more about this person, like I did. And I went out.
Yeah,
I spent the past 2 days now pretty much researching Hunter S. Thompson. And while I have read some of his works, one of the first works that I actually read by him was that Hell's Angels novel. But I read that in school because I went to school for criminal profiling, and here was a person who lived with the Hell's Angels and wrote about them. And we're talking about gang culture. Like, he's one of the first people to ever write about gang culture. You know,
Because he was in the gang.
because he was a part of it. And like I mentioned before, when that book started selling like hotcakes and was on New York Times bestsellers list and everything like that, the Hells Angels showed back up and beat the shit out of him because they felt they were owed portions of the money that he made from the film, and he refused to give it to them because it was his voice that made that book great. It wasn't the Hells Angels.
Yeah.
And even one of the Hells Angels liked him so much that he couldn't bear to see him getting his ass beat and eventually being killed, that he actually pulled him up and stopped the other guys from killing him. So I mean, it was because of his personality that actually got him into the trouble that he was, and also got him out. And I think that's exactly what Fear and Loathing
Loyalty and respect. You know?
I think that's exactly what Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is throughout the entire thing. It's while you want to hate him for what he's doing, and you want to hate things about the film, and you don't want to condone the things that you also love him for going that far. And then also he pulls back at times too, so you still get to see the human that's underneath.
Well, here's my question: When are they going to make the biopic of Hunter S. Thompson?
It's soon. I
sure
think
they
it's
will.
soon. We tend to be, the voice of the zeitgeist. Once we put something out there, it tends to happen. I'd like to know.
I was not aware of that, but
No,
pretty cool.
We have that power.
I would say within the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, it's coming. I'm sure
It's
yeah.
coming. I
I think it'll be a good thing because people need
see it
to.
being
But
this
people
type
need
of
to.
film, though.
What I think would be really
Yeah.
cool, honestly, if you did a biopic about Hunter S. Thompson, you don't have one person play him. What you
Do the
wind
Bob Dylan thing.
You do the Bob Dylan thing. That's exactly what I was thinking. And in old age, and I think this would be kind of perfect. In his older age, you have John Malkovich play him. In his middle age,
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp, exactly.
Yeah,
You bring him back, and you have Bill Murray play.
Yeah.
I think you do that. You
Maybe
you kinda,
different scenes with different actors.
But there's so many
The
facets. to-
personality is big enough. Yeah.
Right. There's so many facets to that big personality that I think you can have multiple people play him, and I think
it would
That's the best
reintroduce him
way to go.
I think it would reintroduce him to a lot, younger audience now.
I think so. I think so. I mean, like I said, I picked Walk the Line for my film, and I think Walk the Line reintroduced a lot of people to Johnny Cash. And I think if you do Hunter S. Thompson and you do it in maybe not in that style, but more of like the Bob Dylan style, where you have multiple people play him.
It's got to be crazy if they do it.
I think it would, and it would definitely be like an Oscar bait type film. It wouldn't be like a film that everyone goes and sees. It would definitely be more of like
Sure.
an indie cult film and stuff like that. But I think it would be really cool. So let's get into our next films. So we're back to Rob. Rob is going to select our next category, and we're all going to go around and select our films for that category. So Rob, what do you got?
Well, this show is pretty hardcore. I mean, you got drug fueled, like every single drug name is name dropped in this film.
Are you going to show us a video of puppies and palate cleanse us?
I'm gonna bring us down a little bit of a level here. I've decided that I thought, and something I was kind of thinking it in terms of for me as well, something that I could tie in, maybe a fan film of some sort. I don't think I could think of a fan film that has anything to do with Fear and Loathing. So my thoughts here, and this is my category, I'm going to do 80s John Hughes films. Now, it can be written and directed, but it has to be from the 80s.
Well, goddamn, that sounds like a fantastic idea. So the person to kick this off, Rob, since it's your category, that's you, buddy.
I'm going to go with my favorite, Weird Science.
All right. Two guys who are high school losers decide that they are going to use their computer knowledge to take a Barbie doll and turn her into a real life person.
It really is. It's a fun movie.
And remember, the thing I learned from this film And the thing I'll take to the grave is tits. You don't want them to be too big. You just want a handful, enough to play with.
It's true.
Mark, you're next. What you got?
Well, while Ferris Bueller is my favorite, I'm going to, because it's the holidays coming up, and I just rewatched this film, and I love this movie, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
All right.
Nice.
I think it's a little late for that. Thanksgiving is past, but it does have the...
Well, it's still holiday-esque.
Right,
candy.
It's cold out.
It does have the it has love in my heart because it's the only like Thanksgiving film that like exists. You know what I mean?
It's a little late, yeah, but you know.
But I like it.
Yeah.
I like Trains, Planes, and Automobiles. I think it's the most, how do I put it? The most human of the John Hughes films. You know what I mean? Like it shows this. It's also about adults. A lot of John Hughes films, people think about teenagers and stuff like that. This one's about adults, and I really like that. I'm gonna go. I know Jay really wants to pick Ferris Bueller.
We all want to pick Ferris Bueller. But.
And I definitely want to stay away from Breakfast Club. I know how loved that is.
How about Curly
Everyone
Sue?
loves-
No?
No, I'm not going to do Curly Sue. And he said 80s, so he can't go Home Alone. There's like a lot of ways to go in this, but I'm going to go with my personal favorite John Hughes film. And I showed you guys a bunch of clips of it before we did this. My favorite John Hughes film is The Great Outdoors with John Candy and Dan Aykroyd. It is absolutely hilarious.
Big Bear chase me.
Big Bear, 66 times, 66 in the head, 66 times in the head. I'm gonna go introduce Mr. Fat Dick to Mr. Urinal Cake. It is absolutely one of my favorite John Hughes films. And it also has one of my favorite animal actors ever in it, Bart the bear, and he plays the giant bear who shows up at the end of the film to attack the family in the house. And I love that film. I would love to talk about that film because I feel like that film does not get enough love.
I grew up with that movie.
Yeah, so did I.
I'm right there with you.
My grandmother owned 2 VHSs when I was growing up. She owned 1989 Batman, and she had The Great Outdoors.
Good selection.
As a kid, I only had 2 films to
a
really
totally
watch.
different
Am I in for action or comedy?
You're right. Yeah. What am I in the mood for? Where does he get those wonderful toys? Big Bear, chase me! It sums up my entire childhood of just
Makes a lot of sense, Dave.
of just making
It does
fun
make a lot of sense.
wherever
It
I
all
could,
comes out, man.
wherever I could find it. So this is my plea. Please vote for Great Outdoors, because if not now, then when? Because it's never going to
never coming up again.
It's never coming up again. This is the only time Great Outdoors is ever going to come up.
Unless we do like wilderness movies or something like that.
And then we can do an entire. I'll just do an entire category about Bart the Bear. You can have Bart the Bear in The Edge. You can have Bart the Bear in Great Outdoors. I'll search IMDb later for more.
Edit. Okay.
All right, Jay.
And by far, 100%, I am going to pick Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
And probably not even.
I actually hope Jay wins again.
I know Jay's gonna win, but honestly,
This is by far my favorite movie, and the one movie that just always stands out for me.
the reason I don't want to do that is because I feel like fan theories and people have dissected that one to hell. Like I feel like that is so dissected.
Yeah, I feel like that's Breakfast Club for me. I feel like that's
Yeah, same reason with that.
But
It's been overdone,
but at the
overanalyzed.
same time, our listeners want to hear what our take is.
Quick, everybody, just start talking shit on Ferris Bueller and just kick dirt in Jay's eyes so people don't vote for it.
I love
It
Ferris.
just so
So-
it's not 2 in a row.
It's up to the people.
Yeah, good point.
The
Right.
people want to know what we have to
bring
say
them
about
down
certain
a
kind of
notch now.
films, so they'll vote for it. That's
I
how
hope.
it
You know
is.
what though? I feel like in some of the choices they've gone for ones that have not been the favorites sometimes too though. So like I feel like
Or the obvious choice
Yeah,
that
or the
you might
obvious
think
choice is what I mean, yeah. So I think we've
Right.
all got.
I mean,
like
again, I 100%
okay-
know I'm taking a loss here. I know I am because I'm doing.
don't know.
I'm doing my favorite.
never know.
I'm doing my favorite again, and
You're a
not a
good
lot of
salesman,
people
Dave.
have seen Great Outdoors.
But you got to go for your favorite.
But I'm going for my
Yeah.
favorite in this, and I'm taking another loss. I mean, I've won 3, so I'll still be in the lead. I'm still comfortable with that, but
Not that we're keeping score.
we are.
Oh, okay. Wasn't aware of that, but
There's a trophy at the end.
is it shiny?
I haven't made it yet, but it will be.
I'm in.
Shiny bottle of beer.
There is a contest here. We are. This show will be released in seasons. Technically, once we finish 12 of them, we will be into season 2. So
All right. Well, so someone wins it at the end of the
Someone
season.
will win the title at
All
the
right.
end of the season.
Oh, I like
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
I like that.
So,
I better stop picking underdogs then.
yeah. Well, I mean,
How that's how
I
we're
had known
done.
that earlier. We would have picked better films.
It's just the movies I gravitate towards.
but I think that's
I'm changing my mind. I'm going for The Breakfast Club.
Don't you dare. No. So those are your 4 choices. You can pick from Weird Science, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, The Great Outdoors, or Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And that will be posted up on Twitter 3 days after this podcast comes out. I, of course, am Super Movie Brother Dave. You can catch our regular show, Super Movie Brothers, which obviously plays on the same feed that this does, but we are also part of a network, the Podfix Network. We're very proud of the network that we're a part of, and we love to support those. So please, that are part of the network. So please go to www.podfixnetwork.com and check out all the other shows that are involved there. Also, if you go there onto the extras page, you'll find the Super Movie Brothers movie cocktail recipes, which I will start submitting to there for everyone to go and reference from and take a look at, so you can make them at home while you watch these films. Rob?
You can catch me on my podcast, The Fan Film Boys. I talk about fan films. We discuss, we review, we help promote, and we do also have a lot of interviews. I've actually started doing a lot more interviews with fan film actors, actresses, writers, directors. So you can catch me there. My website is www.fanfilmboys.com, and that's boys with a Z.
And also, by the time people are hearing this, you can catch all of us together talking about 2 fan films.
Yes, that gets released very, very soon. So by the time that this episode is released, that one would have already been released. That was a fun show, so definitely check that one out.
Awesome. Mark?
Mark, I make films and things, so check me out on my website. It's www.markdickerson.com, Mark with a C. I'm also was on Rob's podcast, and I guess we're recording another one after this. So
Yeah.
and it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Awesome. And you have your own podcast coming out
And
very soon.
yeah, oh, all right, we're gonna talk about it. Okay,
That's right.
Yeah, so I actually have my own podcast in the works. We recorded the first 2 episodes. I'm currently editing the second one, and we were talking about cult films earlier. It's all about cult films. It's called Cult Movie Cult. So I'll give you guys more info once that gets going.
Mark, forever the dark horse.
Of course.
I'm looking forward to that.
So thanks
I'm gonna
everybody.
subscribe.
Thanks
Awesome.
everybody for listening. Don't forget to tip your bartenders, make our cocktail, and have a great time.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
There he goes. One of God's own prototypes. A high-powered mutant of some kind never even considered for mass production. Too weird to live, and too rare to die.